What's up, everybody? This is Donnie, aka Elevated, and I'm here with another tier list video. And Jenkins is busy slaying orcs, or like, I don't know, rolling dice. He's playing D&D, so he thinks that D&D is more important than Dota at the moment. Believe what you will. Luckily, I have a better replacement, and that is my new best friend, BSJ. What's going on, man?
Nice. I have a new best friend as well. Nice to be here. Just ready to tell people what's good.
So, BSJ, I know you've been making content for quite some time. I believe that I actually was one of the original people who helped edit some of your videos at Game Leap back in the day, but you've been making quite a bit of content recently with another one of my friends, Breaky. You have a podcast that's going on right now, right?
Yeah, Breaky and I have been doing a podcast now for about 10 or 11 episodes, I would say. We record it every Monday, 5 EST. It's called the Wombo Combo. We just talk about pretty much anything relevant in the Dota scene, the new patches, the majors, the minors, what we think of roster changes, all that kind of stuff. I've been doing educational content for a while, and people had really been asking about what are my thoughts on stuff going on in the scene. So it's been a nice way for Breaky and I to be able to talk about that. So you can find us over at twitch.tv/Prediction Esports. Prediction is spelled with 2 E's, so it's PREEDICTION Esports. And you can also find us, all the information is on podcasts, it's iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, all that stuff. So that's what we've been doing, or at least I've been doing in the content realm, and nice to be a part of this as well. Just doing little things, trying to make sure people know that I haven't phased off the face of the planet, you know what I mean?
Yeah, as you kind of phase a little bit out of maybe playing competitively for a bit, you got to keep your toes in the Dota water because it's kind of hard to break that addiction or whatever you refer to it as. I'm not gonna lie,
it's a hobby,
Exactly. A very, very serious hobby that we all struggle with at times. I'm not gonna lie, I listen to your podcast on Spotify myself on a pretty regular basis. I've been enjoying listening to your thoughts on the scene. To that end, we're going to hop into our tier list, and we're going to be doing carry tier list today. Of course, we'll have other ones coming out, and BSJ is going to help me build the tier list for the current meta. So let's hop into it. At S tier, currently in this little hero grid, we have Slark and Phantom Lancer. How do you feel about those two heroes?
So I think the main changes about this patch, before we dive in real quick,
Sure.
I just want to be clear that I think there's a overlying theme of what happened to a lot of heroes in the meta of like what's good and what's bad now in the carry role, and I think I want to talk about that just a tad. So I think the offlane hero pool drastically affects the carry hero pool. So like with the nerfs to stuff like Doom and the buffs to offlaners that really stand out to me are the Mars is like, I think that hero is really good right now. And I also think Enchantress is really strong. So just keeping that in mind, heroes like, I think Slark was way better last patch because of the offlaners that were popular. He was really good against, on top of like all the other reasons why Slark was good.
Right, lots of the tanky heroes that he can just kind of abuse in lane.
Exactly, the Underlords, the Dooms, these types of heroes. I don't think he's nearly as good against the current offlane pool. So I would probably put Slark in the bottom of A tier. I think he's still fine, but you can't just kind of pick him into any matchup. Like last patch, what it felt like was if I picked Slark, it really didn't matter for the most part what offlaner the opponent picked. I was either going to have a good game or a really good game.
Right.
And I don't feel like that's the case anymore. So he's still strong, but he's more situational rather than just kind of being S tier. So I put him in the bottom of A tier.
That makes sense.
I think PL is probably the bottom of S tier. I think he's still really good at pubs. I think he is most notably just like really good against people who don't know how to counter him. Sure. I think in Pro Dota, if played around properly, PL's a lot weaker. But for people who are watching this, obviously they're going to be playing their pubs. So I think PL is still quite strong. Loses very few matchups, and overall just scales incredibly well into the late game and is pretty forgiving. You have pretty good survivability. and if you learn how to maneuver with his illusion, very strong. So I'd still put him up there. These are obviously first impressions, but I think the change to the offlane pool as well as Battle Fury and Maelstrom changes are pretty heavily impactful for carries right now.
Yeah, definitely.
I think like Battle Fury is going to be way better this patch. I think people are still figuring it out, myself included, but with the way like the new neutral items work, where you can kind of just load up on Wraith Bands and then get a neutral item and then get maybe a wand on top of that, you can afford to go for like one or bigger item where you still have really powerful mid-game presence on certain heroes while going for that greedier Battle Fury type item. So that with that in mind, I still think Lifestealer is probably S tier in my opinion.
Okay.
I don't know how many heroes you guys generally put in S tier.
It varies.
Put 3 or 4.
Yeah, it's
I'll
usually
probably put 3 or 4.
It's usually 3 or 4, and that's just kind of like the S tier sort of just defined as like pretty much pickable any game. You're going to be fine. And the current build for Lifestealer, if I'm not mistaken, is just like Phase Maelstrom Rush. Is that what you've been seeing?
Yeah, I think Phase Maelstrom Halberd is fine. Like that was the most popular build last patch. I think it might change up a bit. I even built Battle Fury in one game that I was unkillable and I had a good lane matchup.
Okay.
I think like these things are worth considering.
Sure.
It's still initial impressions like I'm going to keep hashing out, but I do think Lifestealer in general just has a lot of strong lane matchups and just naturally does his job very easily in the game. But the reason why I'd be concerned with Lifestealer is heroes like Troll as well as Razor coming back into the meta.
I've just seen Arteezy spamming a ton of Razor recently, and that makes a lot of sense. If a hero like Lifestealer is coming back to the meta, then obviously Razor comes back to the meta too because it just absolutely dominates him.
I want to put Razor top of the. I want to put him in S tier as well.
Really? Okay.
I've seen, like I was going to say Arteezy, you already stole my thunder on that one. I personally, so last patch, I really do equate Razor to the new Slark, where 80% of the offlane hero pool was like unpickable because Razor's in the game. Because Slark's in the game, meaning like I couldn't pick Underlord if Slark was not banned. I just couldn't pick Underlord. I just lose the game, lose the lane like immediately. This patch, it feels like pretty much any melee offlaner worth considering is other than Mars, because you can like spear him away, is pretty much like unplayable if you're against a Razor. It's just actually unplayable. I've tried everything. Like any of these melee heroes, I'm like, oh, pick it, and then they pick Razor.
Right.
I've seen Moose spamming it. I've seen Arteezy spamming it. Mason spamming it. They're all doing really well with it. So that gives me the initial impression. The goal with this hero, though, is that he just removes like a melee hero from the game. Like in the lane, you want him against any melee offlaner, and you want him against any carry that can't immediately break the link. So, anything without innate mobility in the carry role, Razor, I think, is insanely strong against. So just to keep him in mind that even though I put him in S tier, I think it's because he's good against what's good.
Sure.
But it can't just be pick Razor. It has to be with the intent that it's like a 4th, 5th pick for your team that's almost a free win if played properly. So that's why I'd put him in the S tier.
That makes sense.
And then oddly enough, I'm going to make a bold claim. I think the last S tier hero that, at least in pubs, and I think we're going to see in Pro Dota, is Ricky. I was
going to say, where's Ricky going to be? Okay.
Yeah, I think Ricky is actually just insane. I've played him myself. I think I'm like 7-2 this patch. I looked at Moo's game history. He's like insane. 10 games in a row or something with Ricky. He's won. The lane matchups are all just really good. The hero has 62 base damage, 5 base armor, 6 health regen or something like that.
Right.
And he just doesn't lose the lane. And
that's another thing.
He doesn't particularly win the lane, but like that's exactly what you want from a carry, right?
Just
he
farm.
Comes online. Yeah, exactly. He comes online really hard at level 6 in terms of damage output. You just go like double Wraithband, Treads into Diffusal or Battle Fury depending on the game. So he has like versatile builds. I've seen people go Battle Fury. I've seen Moo goes Diffusal, Manta, Scotty every single game. So it's like different ways of playing him. And I just think his scaling into the late game is like actually nuts. And
right, with the 2 charges of Blink, he's like hyper mobile, extremely hard to lock down. And one actually kind of interesting thing about the Razor and the Ricky is that both of them have just been buffed in like 15 straight patches or something ridiculous like that. Like it seems like every single patch there's like an incremental tweak to like their numbers going up in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in complete agreement with that. So I would probably put to end the conversation on Ricky, because of I will drastically emphasize that I think the hero pool that is good is as a result of what else is good. So
Sure.
with those four heroes being very good in mind, I would say that my A tier heroes I'd probably leave Slark there, but I think I'd bump the other three down to the beginning of B tier. I think all of those are decent heroes, but they're not great, all things considered. Like I think Morphling and Drow suffer very hard against Ricky.
Yeah.
And then I think Naga in general just gets outpaced, especially with the new Battle Fury change. Like you just buy Battle Fury on heroes that couldn't previously counter her. The buff to Battle Fury gives it more damage, more cleave. So I think the amount of matchups that Naga has that are worse are higher.
Yeah, that makes
so and when it moves to A tier, I really do think A tier is going to be defined by what heroes benefit from Battle Fury or just in general diffusal. Like I think diffusal, Battle Fury are the two most carry defining items right now. Like
sounds like a jug patch then.
Yeah, if you want to be aggressive, I think diffusal is the key. I was gonna put jug in A tier myself, but I think that's a ballsy play. Like meaning,
Sure.
I think jug is another hero where basically if they have no magic immune damage piercing, he's not a damage dealer. Like I don't view him as like that's how he is picked in the draft. I pick him as a hero that like has a decent lane matchup and then just can't die. So he goes phase Battle Fury and
shoves side lanes, hits towers.
Yeah, shoves side lanes, gets like 4 slotted by 25, 30 minutes.
Right.
And he's just unbeatable at that point. I think you have to be active in the game though. And the point of the hero, I think, is that he can be played in an active way while building a Battle Fury. Like I think if my lane goes well enough on heroes like Ricky Jug, I can actually participate pretty early in the game with a Battle Fury. So that's like the kind of cool part. So I think Monkey King goes up to A tier for me as well. I think that hero was seen towards the end of the major.
Yeah, looked really good actually. Matumba Man, looked super good on that hero.
He's just like a team fighting Slark. Like I'd actually put him above Slark. I think Slark's probably going to be weaker than him. I think that Monkey King can go multiple different builds and is just really hard to play against when played properly. I think Monkey King is a very special hero, meaning that if you don't know how to play Monkey King, you can't just pick him up and say, I'm going to play Monkey King. I highly recommend.
Everybody just tries to abuse Jingu at like level 1, level 2, and it's just not a good skill anymore at that point. But later on, you become almost unkillable at that point. So
definitely watch some replays of that hero if you're gonna pick him.
Specifically like Moo.
Oh god.
I was just gonna say specifically like Moo. He's just an absolute wizard on the hero. So
Moo, Matumba Man, Mid One, all these players. Thompson, if you ever get the pleasure of seeing him play it. I know we're talking about carries, but he is a nice hero that if you're a carry player and you're forced to play mid sometimes, that you could potentially pick mid as well. So that kind of goes well for that. I actually would put Arc Warden A tier. I think another hero that fits Monkey King's description, though, where
play it if you're good at it, otherwise leave it alone.
Exactly. And that's pretty much the description of that hero. We just saw a lot of them at the major, and I think people are just going like this quadruple Wraithband treads.
No Midas, build. Right? Yeah, no Midas at all.
Yeah. And you're actually participating in the game of Dota, I think is what they're emphasizing. Like, I don't think our Gordon's A tier if you're going to go Midas, Boots of Travel, Shadow Blade, Maelstrom. I don't think that's what is good. So just being clear, if you're going to build that way and you're wondering why Arc Gordon's not working out for you, I don't think that's actually good. So that's my opinion on the hero. Going off of the whole Battle Fury Diffusal thing, go ahead.
I was going to say, how about Specter? I feel like that hero is kind of starting to trend upwards as well.
Okay, if you were watching my stream the other day, you'd know why I reacted the way I did. I literally had, I think it was 3 days in a row that I had Specters for some reason just being picked across the board on my team, and they were like 0-7.
Oh my god!
They were like 0-7. Like, every single game I had a Specter on my team, I lost the game. So you're asking the wrong guy. I think people are giving it credit, like people are picking it, but man, do I not think it's good. I do not think it is good. I think that hero is is a trap. Like I can't like maybe in a hyper situational, the enemy team has like
Sure.
3 intelligence, like a squishy mid, 2 squishy supports, and like you're gonna have a decent lane. Like maybe, like,
Right.
but like I have a hard time believing Specter's better than
Right. At that
other
point, just pick any of
heroes.
the S or A tier heroes because
Yeah,
you do the same thing.
that's how I feel. You know,
Sure.
I'm glad to eventually be wrong about something like that, but I've had very weak
Makes sense.
performances from teammates on Specter. So in the patch where she was broken, it kind of just felt like you didn't really need to know what you were doing, and she was a good
Right.
hero. And I don't think that's like the case at all for this patch.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. We'll see how it turns out, though. I have been seeing a lot of Specters. Like I said, going off the Diffusal Battle Fury, I think I'm going to put PA as well as Troll in the A tier. I think that'll wrap up my A tier carries. I think both these
Really?
heroes, like PA got 3 base damage, and then they buffed her core item in the Battle Fury.
Yep.
I think she also benefits from the item slot from neutral items a lot, too. I think certain heroes benefit from that way more than others. These early game carries that really appreciate having like value items. You know, on PA you can get like the double Wraithband wand Blightstone kind of thing on top of the neutral item, and then you also can go for that later, like that greedier Battle Fury.
Yeah, if you get like a broom handle or something like that on PA, you're just like, holy shit, I'm suddenly slotted at like 15 minutes into the game.
I also think, like I said, with matchups, that heroes go up drastically. I think Enchantress is one of the most broken offlaners right now, and PA is like really hard to play Enchantress into. I think that the lane matchup's kind of meh for PA, but like in the later game, she actually just blinks and kills you in like 2 shots. I've had that struggle myself, so that's why I put PA in A tier as well. Just good matchup and good use of the current items.
Real quick before we move on to like B tier, so we're seeing a lot of like the return of multiple Wraithbands. A hero like PA, would you probably just go like, are you going phase or treads these days? I feel like there's kind of like 2 camps on that point. Is it a phase game? Is it a treads game? Is it sort of game dependent, depending on whether there's lots of physical?
I think it's definitely game dependent. I think if you're having a really good game, I like treads a lot. And if you're having like a highly contested lane and the enemy is light on stuns, I think phase are better.
Makes sense.
Phase are better for the lane, but treads are just so much cheaper compared to phase nowadays. They're like 770 gold less, I think, and something like that. And they're just more stat efficient for any carry that wants to be farming. And you know, I think Jug still needs phase, for instance, because he just runs at people.
Yeah.
But PA, since she has the gap close, I think can get away with treads.
Nice. Okay, well, why don't we just kind of briefly touch on like the B and C tier, and D, if there's anything down there. I mean, I know that your boy Ursa is down there at the moment on this list, but that hero does feel kind of dog at the moment. So
yeah, you know, I mean, since I'm just kind of being honest, and I'll move things around. I think Night Stalker, Specter are both D tier. I think those are hardly ever going to be carry picks anymore. I think Bloodseeker's the bottom of C tier. I think that hero's honestly way overrated. I may be wrong about that one. A lot of people seem to like it, but I don't think it does well in most games. I've been watching it.
I have like 1,000 games of Bloodseeker. I'm one of those people, and I'm not gonna lie, I haven't liked the hero ever since they got rid of the damage on Thirst. I think it's been overrated ever since then.
Yeah, I don't particularly think he wins a lot of the matchups he's against. I think a lot of offlaners kind of brutalize him right now, and that hero kind of relies on winning his lane. So that's why I kind of put him there as overrated. I would probably move Ember and Weaver up, like in the same tier, but like they're probably better than the far right of that tier. And then other than that, I don't think anything's crazy wrong. You know, could stuff move around slightly? Probably I'd put Clinks in probably the beginning of C tier, or, you know, like that's close to, you know, like I think Clinks may be better than we're giving him credit for, but at the same time, he just doesn't recover. And I think any hero in this patch that doesn't have any sort of like, oh shit, this game didn't go according to plan, you know, I don't think that that's like an ideal situation, because a lot of carries, even if they have a strong lane, they want to spend 4 to 5 minutes farming. And if their lane is kind of even, they can choose to leave. Clinks doesn't have like a choice. He doesn't have a place to go. And I think that I'm highlighting that simply because that goes for a lot of the carries that I don't think are particularly strong at the current moment.
That makes sense. With the Clinks, you'd probably want to have like a more true one in your mid, right? Like I don't know, like a Dark
Yeah,
Warden or something like that, who's actually going to take up a lot of the space while you roam around and kill people. Because I mean, you're trash at farming,
for
basically.
sure.
Yeah.
I agree with that one. And then aside from that, though, I would say that that is pretty accurate for what I think the current meta is for carries.
Nice. All right. Well, I had one other question. Something that I saw recently. I'm actually putting out a video today. I guess it's in the past, but it's I saw Miracle playing Medusa in the mid, in the bottom lane, safe lane, and it made me think about how important the safe lane tower is a little bit, and whether heroes or carries specifically that are pretty good at just kind of like holding an area are going to be trending upwards, just because it seems like the map is like, obviously, like the game flow is still pretty similar, where you like split the map vertically after the safe lane towers fall. But it seems like if you can hold on to your safe lane tower because you have a carry that can statically hold it, um, you end up with like this ridiculous EXP and map control advantage. I mean, that's always kind of been the case, but I've seen more and more heroes that are good at wave clear kind of coming back into the meta. I don't know if you've seen that in your own games or
The
not.
ones that stand out to me, just to go off that comment, are like to go off the playstyle that I think carries are nice. If you notice a lot of my S tier and A tier heroes, once these heroes get levels and they're ahead, it's almost impossible to approach their lane,
Right.
which kind of goes along with defending their tower. It's like they don't defend their tower necessarily, but they make their lane really dangerous to enter. So
Yep.
it makes taking their tower dangerous by virtue of that. I also think carries that are counterplayable for, meaning that if they try to gank your carry, that you
Totally.
can turn it around either because that guy's survivable or just outputs a lot of damage. I think all of the high tier carries on my list fit that description, while a lot of the heroes like Wraith King and Alchemist and Terrorblade, like those heroes don't really fit that description. That's why I like you don't really want to try to counterplay somebody ganking an Alchemist. That doesn't really feel good.
Right.
And then like in terms of what Alchemist actually offers to the gank, to the participation. And then that might also change my opinion on Luna. So I think I'm actually going to say Luna's in C tier. She's definitely not terrible. Now that we talk about this, I think that hero might be good. Just because her early game buffs to her passive, and then she's actually a hero that you don't mind ganking for. So because of her ultimate. And you can even put Medusa on a list like this. I do think that I think all towers are super important now that outposts are gone.
Right.
I'd probably put
C,
Medusa.
like
yeah, probably C, just because that's not necessarily for me. When I look at lists, it's like not necessarily how good or bad a hero is; it's how often they're viable. So I think Medusa would probably be very situational, but could be very strong in a game where if you look at the opponent's lineup, they really need to take towers, and then they don't kill Medusa very well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think she could be really good in a game like that.
And that's why somebody like Void would probably still be reasonably good, or Magnus even as a carry, just because like you can gank to them, or if somebody tries to dive you, obviously you have a huge amount of team fight to play around.
I agree with that. Yeah, I definitely agree with that idea. Any hero that can independently farm around his own safe lane, I think is already better. All the better heroes do that. And like I said, it's mainly that. I think that's a big deal. And then it's the matchups in the off lane that are going to matter to me. So like PL doesn't feel good to play most off laners against. And like as we go down the list, if they pick Terrorblade, there's like 12 different off laners.
Right,
that
you're
I
just
could
like,
pick
all right, free MMR, let's go.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so last question. Where would you put Antimage? I mean, he's going to stay in his little doghouse over here, but if you had to put him somewhere in one of these tiers, where would he go?
It's like they both Battle Fury, so I'd probably put him in like the bottom of B tier. Okay. I think if you're against like an intelligence offlaner like Necro or something, or Leshrac or something like that, Antimage with a good matchup could potentially be really strong there.
Makes sense. All right, BSJ, well, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure everybody's watching this to go check out the Wombo Combo podcast. The link will be in the description below. Awesome content from BSJ. And do you have anything else going on that's coming up anytime soon?
Nothing for me, man. That's about it.
just the grind for transition to offlane,
Yeah.
trying to fill those spots that everybody seems to be replacing with carry players. So it's a natural transition for you. All right, man. Well, thanks again for joining us, and thank you everybody for watching. We'll see you next time.